Welcome to Get Your Mind Right, the podcast where merchant services, digital marketing, and personal growth collide. Tune in for real talk, fresh insights, and the motivation to level up.
Good morning, John Johnson here, and welcome to Get Your Mind Right. And this morning, I'm here with rock musician, inventor, collector, and merchant services maestro extraordinaire, Gene Schenberg.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Gene,
I don't know if I can live up to that introduction now.
well, I think you have.
All right, thank you.
So Gene, I when I was prepping for today's show, and I can't believe I didn't know this, but you were selected by the ETA as one of the top professionals in 2024 in our industry.
Thank you, I was.
Well, it's fantastic. For people who listen to my show and people that are in our training, that phrase "top professional" means something very, very special to me, and that's rarefied air when you're breathing that, and and how you conduct yourself. And one of the things as a top professional is a top professional all the time. It's not a 6-day-a-week kind of job or 5-day-a-week kind of job even. No. But you're really that guy. I've known you for a few years now, and I've seen how you interact, and just your commitment to showing up, being present, and getting the job done is just really unparalleled in your space.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I work hard to earn it.
Yeah. Yeah. It sure doesn't come easy, does it?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So Gene, let's talk about your job today. I mean, you see ISOs, you've got partners of all different types of stripes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like from a preparation standpoint, you say you work hard to do that. What's that look like for you?
Well, I think it depends if it's a new customer, one that I'm potentially trying to sign up as a new partner for
Mm-hmm.
us. It's trying to be overly transparent and overly informative.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather over-explain something than feel like I left something out that might
Mm-hmm.
come to bite us in the butt later.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to me, sometimes I wouldn't say to the point of exhaustion, it's not like a negative, but people who know me know I ask lots of questions and I provide lots of information simply because you don't want surprises later. When you're selling a new customer, it's important to be a subject matter expert.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to convey that to your partner so they feel comfortable doing business with you. And then it's important that you fulfill and do the things that you say, and you don't miss something huge. It's, like, for instance, the tariffs that have come up lately. The tariffs were 25 or 30%, depending on where they were coming from. We worked with the factory, we worked with our partners, we were able to eat some of it, the factory ate some of it, and we passed 8% on to our partners.
Mm.
So of the 25%, 8% was what we had to mark the product up for to cover it. I had to be really careful to share that with everybody right away, because the last thing you want to do is place an order and then be told later, oh, the price went up. So be in front of the things like that. I realize that isn't exactly the question, but it's really important to be.
That's interesting you say that, because I haven't talked to a lot of people who've dealt in a real world circumstance with these tariffs. How did your partners react to this?
Well, the good news is that I think our percentage is a lot lower than our competitors. So the fact that everybody knew there was a tariff, everybody knew that the prices were going to go up, but nobody knew how much or for how long.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that we came in under our competitors helped.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, that's great, you're at 8%, one of your competitors is at 20 and the other one's at 25. We still like you and we'll do business with you because you ate more than your competitors did.
Right.
But it's tough. Everybody looks at it differently. Some people marked up the prices of their products. Some people looked at making the customers commit to longer periods of time. Everybody's different, and everybody's business model is different. So the nice thing is that there's choice in the field.
Let's pivot to your partners that you're working with today. Sure. I know that Valor has. You guys, it's amazing what you guys are doing, and you continue to do more things. But
Thank you.
Like what you look at and say 2026 and even 2027. What are different types of partners and avenues that you're going to be looking at? Like for example, ISV.
Right. So we realized a couple of years ago that one of the keys to our growth is going to be to have partners. Everything we've done up until then was in-house. We never had, we didn't really have any external partners unless somebody like you came to us and said, hey, we really like this particular point of sale solution. Mm-hmm. We'd really like to deploy it with Valor. Mm-hmm. Can you guys make that happen? And then we would go do that, but we would do it for you. Now we've sort of pivoted and we've provided an open API library on our website. Anybody who's a developer in any size, shape, or form can come and use those tools to be compatible with our hardware. And that's helped because we've gone from no ISV partners to probably 30 ISV products that are launched now. And that'll continue to grow and scale, but it really comes from partners like you who've decided that you like a particular piece of software and, as a partner of ours, you'd like us to be compatible. So that's been one of the really driving forces in terms of growth and pivoting over the last couple of years into the next couple of years.
So in these ISVs, I mean, this is new opportunity for you and Valor, of course, but then again, this is a whole different set of issues and integrations and personalities that you're working with.
Absolutely. To put it as kindly as I can, and if we talk about my backstory, some of this will become more apparent later. Dealing with somebody in your capacity, in your socialization as being important to your job, versus dealing with a developer who's a small operation working out of their house and doesn't really deal with people. You've got very different personalities, and you have to be able to adapt and be able to try to be respectful and, again, informative and communicative with your partners, regardless of their size or what disciplines they're in.
So I'm guessing at Valor, still a large part of your sales is represented by ISO channel.
Yes.
So what's on the ISOs you deal with? What's on their minds right now? What are they concerned about? What are they wanting to migrate to?
I think if we look at our product line specifically, they're looking for a slightly larger form factor, probably to support this POS growth. In sort of following up from Alan's presentation at the summit, he talked about stacking. And it's something that I've talked about for a really long time, but I've just never called it stacking. That's a much cleaner word. For me, it's stickiness, and trying to build that stickiness so that your customers stay with you longer. So for us at Valor, we're stacking. So when we first started, we were a terminal manufacturer and a gateway. Now we've added third-party shopping carts and point-of-sale solutions, and now we have an ACH solution, and then we have Flex Factor, which monetizes declines. So we are, like you, are trying to expand our portfolio and try to provide as many solutions for our partners, so our partners will be sticky to us. Just like you want your merchants to be sticky to you. It's the same analogy, just different. It's the sandbox next to your sandbox in the playground. They're very close to each other, slightly different, but it's the same concept.
It's funny you say this. I'm obviously aware of Valor's product set and your roadmap, but that is the same strategies are.
Yes.
You're stacking that into the merchant and the ISO.
Right. And for me personally, it's looking at my customers and finding out, and we now have new metrics. I mean, we've been growing as a company, and now we've got some infrastructure and some data collection and things that our competitors have probably had for years that are, new light bulbs for us, is being able to look at a partner's sales over, now for me personally, a 5-year period of time, because some of my partners have been with me almost 5 years, and looking at their sales. Are they growing? Are they flat? Where did we drop the ball? Did this customer not get shown enough love? And maybe one of our competitors poached them. How do I try to win them back? Or, as Alan said, it's a lot easier to add an additional service to an existing customer than try to get a new customer. So it's the same analogy. Which of my customers don't do anything with Engage My Customer? Which of them just buy terminals but they don't use our virtual terminal? It's trying to, sort of magnify or expand each relationship and look at each relationship and how can that relationship be better and stronger. It's easier to try to potentially look at my existing, mining from our existing well, or whatever you want to call that phrase, than to go out and get new. While we still do that, I'm spending as much time as I can focusing on making sure my current partners are happy and growing with us as well.
Boy, you're like those guys in those 50s and 60s variety shows. They're spinning plates, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you watch those shows when you were a kid?
I did.
Yeah, it always stressed me out a little bit, and now I'm that guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Ed Sullivan's show maybe, or I can't remember, but I think that was the show.
Yeah, and it was even worse. They'd have the guy on the snare drum to add to the tension to it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah.
So Gene, your business is changing as fast, if not faster, than mine. Tell me how that's reflected in conversations you're having with people, just in, say, the last year and a half.
Well, I think one of the things that's really important to keep in mind, at least for me, when I first started in this industry, sales agents were, almost on the same level as a used car salesman. They weren't
Yes.
thought of very, very highly. A lot of times they'd go in, let me see your statement, let me try to save you some money, put the equipment in, and then they never see the agent again. And that was one of the things that was high turnover, high attrition.
That's how the industry was built.
That's right. But I think as the industry has matured over the last several years, I think the sales agents that are successful have learned that there's, for me personally, the same way. Half the battle is getting the deal closed. The other half is getting the deal to perform. So it's one thing to go close that account. If you close it and leave and they're not seeing you, then you run the risk of losing that customer to someone else who comes in and shows more attention. Mm-hmm. And the same thing works at our level as well. So I think that's probably the fact that the better agents, the ones who are growing and thriving, have learned that. And they don't play in the used car salesman old agent sandbox anymore. Mm-hmm. They've moved up several rungs, and they're actual relationship building salespeople, not just get a number and run, which is a big change, which is great for us because that's how we would prefer to have the agents be and build those relationships.
Boy, there's still that oily film remnant of the industry around there, though.
There is.
Every year I think, okay, well, this is the year it's going to go away, but it right. Still hangs out.
Right. Well, and to the same extent, when you look at what we have to offer, we have a suite of services within the Valor system, and I know when I come to your meetings, we talk about all those things, but I don't know that when the agents in the field and they're selling Evolv Pay, and they're offering that as a solution, your salespeople are different because you focus on adding different things. And I expect that merchant's going to learn about the gateway and learn about engage my customer. And once they use the feature set that's in there, they become stickier. Mm-hmm. My issue is a lot of agents leave and all they want to do is sell the terminal and then that's it. So having the opportunity to sell the gateway, having the opportunity to engage my customer helps make them stickier. So getting agents to know what we offer so that they can be better at closing and better at satisfying the merchant's needs is probably one of the biggest challenges I have right now. Being on podcasts like this, being in webinars, doing sales trainings for companies, going to annual meetings, those are all the things that we try to do to convey this message and those additional features.
It's funny. I was the whole time you're talking, Gene, I'm like in my own head because virtually everything you're saying translates to me.
Right.
It's there's so much noise out there, and cutting through it is difficult. And the way you're accomplishing it is you're present. You're right there, and you're having belly to belly conversations with folks.
Right. Well, at this level, I think you have to be. Mm-hmm. I mean,
it's not a spectator sport.
No, and when you sign up to be a partner of ours, you're making a financial commitment. You're investing in our hardware and our platform, and you're taking a leap of faith. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure you're there, and particularly at the very beginning when they've got all the questions, you have to be available to them. And if you're not, then they could just as easily pull up shop and say, never mind, we'll stick with who we had before, or we thought you'd be a great service, but there can't be a but. Mm-hmm. So it has to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's pivot back to when
Sure.
you were talking about when you got in the business. How in the world did you start the merchant services? Now you're a St. Louis boy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to school in St. Louis, and then my first job out of college, believe it or not, was Tandy Corporation Radio Shack.
Oh, that's the original home of Cliff Torrance, by the way.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
There's a lot of successful people came from Tandy Corp.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was there on the cusp of the personal computer. And my job, I graduated with a degree in business and computer science, and my job was to manage the moving of software from the TRIS-DOS or TRS, Tandy Radio Shack operating system, to the Microsoft operating system. So I was in the woods with lots of developers and programmers and things like that. And then while I was there, there was an opening in the buying department for entertainment and education software and accessories and things like that. And I'm a consumer electronics junkie by nature. I was the nerd that built circuit boards, and I lived in a Radio Shack store as a little kid growing up. So moving to the buying side, I had about a $50 million open to buy.
So they didn't even have to pay you to come to work.
No, they had to pay me. They had to pay me. Yeah.
Let's not go crazy.
Yeah, I wasn't independently wealthy. Well, not now either, but I certainly wasn't in my 20s. So
this is a dream job, though.
yeah, it was. It was an awesome job. And moving to the buying side and signing purchase orders and negotiating pricing and doing all the things that you do to be a good steward of your product assortment helped teach me the retail side of the business. And in that role, I moved to several different companies until one of them was a manufacturer and said, listen, you know the channel. We'd like to get our product into the channel. Would you come work for us? Would you move to the sales side of the equation instead of the buying side? So I actually just moved my position from one side of the table to across the table, and now I'm selling all the people that were like me. But I had subject matter expertise because I could say I sat in that seat just like you. I did your job for years buying product and being a buyer. I'm telling you why, from a salesperson, why you want this, because I could speak to your situation, if that makes sense. And that really helped me be a successful salesperson in that space. And then on a sort of circuitous route, I moved over to a product that allowed you to scan your credit card, and it was a secure device to shop online. People started asking, can I use that to take payments? And it wasn't designed for that, but we pivoted to move in that direction. And that's how I got from a product that was on the shelf at Staples to securely pay with a credit card online to a product that now you could use to do merchant processing.
Oh my goodness. Now what year was this?
Let's see, if I were to guess, maybe 2010, 2011.
Okay. Recent history then.
Yeah, fairly recent. I've only been in the space for a dozen years or so. And then once I was doing that, North America Bank Card was launching Pay Anywhere, which was their competitor to Square at the time. And I was part of the initial launch team that brought Pay Anywhere to market. So that's sort of how I moved from being in the retail space with retail product over to a merchant processor, basically in the role to sell to retail. Similar role, but now I'm working for a merchant processing company selling a product into retail. And once I went from there, then it just stayed in merchant processing ever since. So that's the shortest version of a really long story.
And now you're stuck.
Yes, and now I'm stuck.
Yeah.
It's a good stuck.
Yeah, it is a good stuck. It's just amazing to me. I grew up in the telecom business, but I've never seen anything like this. Merchant services is just people having 25, 30, 35 years in the industry. They're everywhere.
Right. And what's amazing to me, and it's one of those things that it's a head scratcher, is if I knew how well agents could do financially, I probably would have gotten in on the agent side more than this side much earlier in my career. And this conversation probably wouldn't happen because I'd be retired or something by now. So.
Yeah, but just think how your mind has been stimulated, though, right,
True.
Gene? I mean,
True.
you can't put a price tag on it.
No.
Well, actually, you can.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody's got a number, right?
Everybody's got a number.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? For the most part, it's a really good industry. The people are nice. They're well-meaning. They're hardworking. They do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, and everybody's just been great to work with. Every industry has a few outliers that you would prefer not to have to deal with, but for the most part, this has been a really good industry.
It's odd to me, when I first got into it, I don't know how many trillions of dollars go through this, but really how small this industry is. Yeah. And I've talked to some folks that have been in a while that got in it young and they burned some bridges early on. They really regret that. Because these people stay in the industry. It's small.
Yep.
If someone doesn't know you, they know someone that knows you.
Absolutely.
So I impart that on our folks internally all the time. That if you're going to stay in this industry, boy, you really need to guard your reputation.
Absolutely. And I made some of those mistakes early on in my career as well. Fortunately, time heals all wounds, and the industry changes, and where somebody didn't need your product and could tell you to take a flying leap, and it was a sort of corrosive situation. 3 or 4 years go by, and it turns out you have something they really, really want, and they come back and say, hey, can we work together? And it's absolutely, if that's water under the bridge, let's just start over and see if we can't do this better the second time around.
I appreciate you sharing that and making yourself vulnerable here. I made some of those mistakes when I was in my 20s too, because you don't know what a long view is when you're 20-something years old, right?
Well, in all fairness, these were mistakes in my 50s, so I probably should have known better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got lost a little bit on the Tandy. Now, were you on the sales side too when you worked at Radio Shack?
No, but one of the things that was really important for me, that is part of my DNA, I guess, is that when I was a buyer at Radio Shack and had a $50 million open to buy, I picked a lot of products and did a lot of things, but I did them sitting in an office like this. And some people started to say, well, you guys all have ivory tower syndrome. You sit up there on the 15th floor of your office making decisions. You have no idea what's happening in the stores. You guys, it's, how can you possibly make those decisions? You have no idea what happens.
Yeah.
So I took it upon myself to volunteer Thursday nights. I would leave the office, go home, change, do whatever, and then I'd go work in the local store out of my own pocket. The manager loved it because any sales that were made, he'd have to pay a commission to anyone. Because I was working for free, and the fact that I was at the corporate office, if anybody came in and asked a question about my product line, there's the expert right there. You're not going to find this guy in any other store. He'll answer your questions. But it helped me understand what was going on in the field and decisions I was making in the ivory tower, how that trickled down and affected the stores. That product sounded great on paper, but it's not doing well in the store. Being in the store helped me close that loop or feedback loop to be better at my job.
Yeah, that's so important, and I can see how that experience many years ago still has an imprint on you today.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people just don't want to do that. I mean, because working on retail floor, that's work.
Right.
It's hard.
Well, what's harder? In my last position, I actually went and knocked on doors to sell merchant processing. literally grabbed my bag of stuff and my sell sheets and start at one end of the street of a busy business district and door knock all the way down and try to sell merchant processing. So that was tougher. That was a lot tougher. I have no, what's the word I want to use? I have great admiration for people who have a thick enough skin to be able to do that. Is the best way I could put it.
That's the times, as they say, are changing, and we have a number of successful people in our enterprise and our entire franchise, for that matter, that have made a living going out and knocking doors. And it's even those guys who've done that and they're familiar and successful with it, they're just saying that you just can't really do that anymore.
No.
There's very, very little room for that.
Absolutely. I think for me personally, when I did it, the hardest part was that the person who was making the decisions on merchant processing weren't in the store. So, I'm making up a percentage because I don't remember exactly, but for every 100 doors I knocked on, I might have gotten to 20 business owners. Because the business owners are out doing stuff. I mean, they have somebody running their store. They've matured to a point where they don't have to be there every day all the time running their own personal business. They've got people to do that for them while they can focus on bigger things. So that was the hardest part, was then you've got 20% of the owners. Then it's trying to convince those 20% of the owners to,
right.
And then it's a numbers game at that point.
So you'd have to knock on 5 doors just to get a no from the decision maker.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was four the person's not here, 5th I'm not interested. Or I have a contract, or I have this, or I just signed something, or whatever it was. I'm happy with what I have right now, thank you, but no thank you. It doesn't make any difference what you're offering me. I'm happy where I am. I don't want to change. And there's something to be said for that. The agent that built that relationship, more power to them, because they built a relationship strong enough that it makes it impervious to people who knock on the door and try to steal the business.
It is. It's tough to get people to change what their current, not just what their current mindset is, but even when you show them and prove to them there's a better way of doing things, getting them to move that. I'll give you an example, right?
Sure.
You've run into this many times before, where you have a merchant that's doing dual pricing or cash discount, but they're not doing it right. They're just tacking it on there, right? And you go to that merchant and you say, hey, you're at great risk of doing this. Visa can come and shut you down. It's not scare tactics. It's reality, truth, right?
Yeah.
I have not heard of one successful case where they've got that merchant to change all of that, right? So you've got someone, the merchant, their conviction to this product or this way of charging is very high, but this real and present risk They just completely dismiss it. And then you call the guy on the next door in the very same business, and he won't switch to dual pricing because he says, I'm going to eliminate all my customer base if I do that.
That's the way my brother was. Actually, personal, he's recently retired, but he had an automotive repair facility. And I tried to convince him when dual pricing was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody saw it. The gas stations have been doing it for years. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't a surprise. And he was the same way. And I said, well, but if you think about it, dual pricing is just being transparent. Because you know that if you're paying 3% in fees, you've baked that into the labor cost. You've baked that into your other expenses. So if you either could lower your expense or transfer it, you're just saying, listen, I'm charging you 3% because I'm paying 3%, and I've already built that into your product.
Right.
So to me, I would spin that as being a more transparent way of sharing what the credit card expense is, and then I'm just passing it on to you. Just like I'm passing on a percentage of my labor, a percentage of my electricity, a percentage of my insurance, all the things that cost me as a business owner in money. This is just another thing. You're just putting this out there and saying to the customer, this is what you're paying part of that, so I don't have it baked into the price.
I see it exactly the same way. You know, when you go to your brother's shop and you get an invoice from him, you expect an itemization.
Right.
You know, I paid X dollars for the muffler, X dollars for the shocks, etc. The thing is on the credit card though is that how you pay for that as a customer dramatically affects your brother's profitability, right?
Right.
It's a crazy proposition that everyone has just accepted until the proliferation of cash discounting.
Right, but my brother was the same way. He said if I put that sign out there, people are going to be upset. And I said, well, it depends on how you spin it. It depends on how you explain it. If the cost of your product went down 3%, and then you added that in, then you clearly could show it because you actually had a decrease in your cost of goods.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he never did it, but c'est la vie. He's retired and happy, and it worked out for him.
Well, I'll share one of my stupid training stories with you. This
Sure.
is a stupid John story, by the
Okay.
way. So when we rolled out our, of course, we call it buyer's choice, right? When we rolled this out some 5 or 6 years ago, so I was the one responsible for the training deck, right? And so you know how these things are. Like when I'm in my office here and I got the door shut, my ideas are all just genius, right? Just brilliant. So and I rolled it out to the sales force. It was really well received. So then I was convinced how much smarter I was. So I also been around long enough that I want to see what this looks like out in the field, right? So and ironically, it was his automotive shop, and so I had the pitch down. It was going well, and the guy goes, he says, well, this is really straightforward. This is just a price increase you're doing here. And I said, no, it's not. It's just, and I had my whole spiel. And he goes, no, it's a price increase. so I started thinking about this, and I didn't have an answer for this, right?
Sure.
And it really irritated me. And it occurred to me on the way back, I didn't think of everything on this,
Right.
It is a price increase, right? But it also the same back to your brother. He's got an increase in the price of his mufflers. Is he just going to keep that the same, or is that going to be reflected to his customer?
Right. But you can do. Every company's different. So, and I'm not a compliance expert. I don't play one on TV. I can't give advice. I think that's the fair disclaimer I now can say.
Can anyone though?
Right. Exactly. But the point I'm trying to make here though is that depending on what your rules are for compliance and how you dictate how terminals are deployed from your company, you don't have to put in the cash price and have it change and go up for credit card. You can have everything in the store be credit card priced, and then you can offer a discount if they want to pay cash.
Right.
And then it isn't a price increase; it's actually a price decrease.
Decrease.
Because you've been transparent and said that this product includes what I'm selling you includes all of these back expenses. But if you want to pay cash, I'll take a few percentage points off.
It's so interesting to me of just seeing this play out.
Sure.
and all the twists and turns. There was a case in New York, and it was a really small merchant that Visa went after, just some mom and pop deal, and they decided to pound them. So it went to the New York Supreme Court, and the New York Supreme Court, of all things, said this is a free speech issue. When you're a merchant, you can communicate your prices in any way in which you choose, and your customers can choose to shop with you or not shop with you.
Wow.
Hands off, Visa.
Wow, that's awesome.
So
I missed that case.
So who knows where all this is going to end up, though?
Right. No, I totally get it. But I mean, I think Visa's intention, at least on the surface, was just to be good stewards of the relationship and be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Get away from that oily feeling, and not have there be the secret increase that has no explanation. And the customer said, well, why is this 3% higher? Why is this 4% higher? And then they explain it after the fact, and it creates a sour taste in their mouth. I think Visa just wanted there to be transparency in how they do it.
You know, a cynical person might say that Visa is just only concerned about their own brand.
No, that's fair. That's absolutely, yeah. I know you're spinning that sideways, but
or it could be both things.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a famous comedian, although he's not famous to this generation, Stephen Wright.
Mm-hmm.
Very dry sense of humor, and one of the things that stuck with me as a life thing, even though it's meant to be funny, is some people see the glass half full, some people see the glass half empty. I see the glass as being too big. I mean, there's always a third way to look at things, I guess, is my point. So it's not always the obvious, but it works.
He's still around, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him on tour. I haven't seen anything recent, so I don't know if he's slowed down or retired, or I'd like to see him if he was still around, if he had new material.
He was one of the greats.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One of my favorites was he bought a humidifier and a dehumidifier, and he locked him in a room and let him slug it out.
All right. The other one that I like, and we don't have to go too deep into this rabbit hole, is that I don't remember exactly how he set it up, but he pointed over. He saw a person on the subway who had two different color socks, and he said to the gentleman, "Excuse me, you have two different socks on. They don't match." He said, "Yes, they do. I go by thickness, not by color."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just saying, though, people have different ways of looking at things.
Yes.
And even though that's meant to be humorous, it's sort of whacked to the side of your head to go, wait a minute, there are other ways to look at things. Just because you see things black and white, somebody else might see gray. So that's something that, you know, I know we're joking about this, but that's one of the things that sort of sits in the back of my head, is that when somebody presents me with something that doesn't pass the smell test, I don't immediately assume they're wrong. I look to figure out how they think they're right, and then figure out how to navigate that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's boy, you have to burn some calories to keep that level of open-mindedness.
Yeah. Well, I fundamentally agree with you, but if you've been at this long enough, I think it's one of the ways that helps separate you a little bit. Don't just assume that because you're right, they're wrong, or because they're right, you're wrong. There might be a third option.
Yes.
To me, the important part is having the relationship, so you can have the conversation and understand where the other person's coming from, and then meet in the middle, or have something, you know, that so it works out successfully.
It's so difficult translating this to today's world. You know, everyone's a member of a tribe, right?
Yep.
And everything's absolute. And going back to your socks example there, okay, well, you know, do they match? Well, no, they don't match colors, but they do match thickness. And
right.
It just seems today you can have two things that can even semi-oppose each other, but you can hold them at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
People don't seem to have the ability to do that, though.
Not anymore. Not anymore. Not to go down any particular rabbit holes, but I think civil discourse has disappeared.
That's exactly the cause of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
There can be no point of view other than mine.
Right. Well, again, not to get down a political rabbit hole, but you know, my truth, my whatever. People now have their own truths, and you know, it's not black and white anymore. It's black and white and 50 shades of gray. So you have to be cognizant of that, though. If you want to do business with people who have that mindset, you have to be able to adapt. So it's important.
It's well, we're already down the rabbit hole now, but
Sure.
It's so tough though, because what I find people like that though is, you know, it's my truth or whatever. Well, that truth also tends to shift a lot.
Yes. It's not a permanent truth.
Right.
It's a fluid truth.
Yes, or even maybe just for this very moment.
Right. Absolutely. But I mean, I run into this all the time. I mean, I can to try to bring this back into merchant processing. I'm in a situation right now with one of my partners where we had a billing change occur, and it was just a matter of, well, based on the history, the billing change I believe should occur on March 1st, and they said no, it should be 12/31. It's like, well, wait a minute, I can empirically know how I got to March 1st. Help me understand how you got to 12. so I can figure out, and somewhere in the middle, maybe we compromise and we split the difference, but help me understand how you got there. So maybe let me see it the way you see it. Maybe you can convince me otherwise. If not, we'll figure out a way to meet in the middle, and that's important.
Mm-hmm.
So it does actually affect day to day.
It does. It does. Well, Gene, at the top of the show, I made a lot of bold claims about you,
Uh-oh.
and I was talking fast there, so the folks might not have heard this. But one of the things is an inventor, and I've only met 2 or 3 patent holders in my life, but I happen to know that I believe it's a Container Store and certainly Walmart that your patented invention is in them.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me what this is.
So I've always sort of had an entrepreneurial spirit through my growing up. I don't know if it was if it's part of my DNA. I don't know if it's just the people that were around me. But when I worked in corporate life, when I was at Radio Shack, we had to wear a suit and tie 5 days a week. Everybody worked on Saturday, but you didn't have to wear a tie. That was the carrot to get you to come in. You didn't have to wear a tie on Saturdays.
Really loosening things up.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So consequently, I was at the dry cleaner a lot, and the little tiny hook that's in the back of your car, you try to hang 2 weeks worth of clothes on there. When you get home, it's all over the floor. It's a mess, whatever. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And I looked, and I couldn't find one. And I said, well, I'm young. I've got time. I have friends that have money. I'll figure out what it's going to cost to make a product, take it to market, get a couple of friends together, and we'll go see what happens. So that's basically how it started. It was just a need that needed to be filled. And I made mock-ups, and my sort of tinkering background, I could create some mock-ups that looked lifelike, sent them off to a factory and said what would it cost to do the injection molding. I lived in Texas at the time, which is where Radio Shack's corporate offices are.
Is that Houston or Dallas?
They're technically in Fort Worth. Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's one big metroplex now anyway. It's all smooshed together. But took it to a local Texas injection molder, took it to a local Texas packaging company, sat down and made artwork, made mock-ups, and then sent those out to all the retail accounts that I had known and met in my retail side of the business. And in parallel to that, got a patent attorney and got the product patented. But in that process, though, I learned that, what do you have to do to get a UPC code? You can't just make up a number. There's an actual registry and database of manufacturer UPC codes. So you have to register with them, and then they give you the first half of the UPC code. Then you get to pick the second half of the UPC code, however you want for your own part numbers. So I learned stuff like that. I learned that certain aspects of my design could be patented, certain aspects couldn't be patented. And you sort of navigate those waters working with the examiner until you get your patent. But I learned, I did my own packaging, so I learned about packaging, I learned about cost of goods, I learned about shipping. Walmart wanted the product on clip strips. At that time, I didn't know what a clip strip was. It's just a piece of plastic that holds the product that can hang out in the aisle. At the time, I didn't know what that was. So I just absorbed a lot of new information that I had not had before because I hadn't had the experience. But it applies now, though. There's one of my partners is in the process of patenting something today.
Man, tell me what that was like. First time you walked in the Walmart, and I'm sure your heart's beating a little bit faster, and you got some adrenaline, and you go over there, and I guess it's on end aisle or end cap, your clip strip, and there's Gene Schenberg's product.
Yeah, it was great.
What a rush!
It was awesome. Fortunately, in my prior time, I had called on Walmart. So I'd been to their offices. I'd been there to sell other things from other people. Now I'm there to sell something that I made. So there was still that trepidation. There's still the butterflies, but I didn't go in completely cold, which helped. I also believed in the law of large numbers. I sent samples to every single retailer I could get my hands on. Probably sent out 150 samples, got 3 customers. But Walmart is the whale.
Wow.
And while I didn't make the kind of FU money that would not put me here because I was retired before, I did learn a lot, and at least it didn't cost me anything at the end of the day, which was nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So is your patent still being used today?
I let it lapse after, I forget how much it is, 17 years, 10 years. I don't remember exactly what it was. When you own a patent, you have to spend a certain amount of money every year once you hit a date to keep your patent. And at that time, the ROI just didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'd already moved on. I had a different career. That was more of a side hustle.
Yeah.
And at that point, I just sort of let it atrophy.
It had its day.
It had its day.
What an accomplishment, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a little bit of an idea how much work that is. I mean, it's just staggering.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that anybody ever gets anything to market.
Right.
It's just such a huge lift.
Yeah. Well, AI makes it a lot easier now, though. If we
sure
can
does.
take a minute to indulge in a side story, Valor was looking to get a certain phrase trademarked. And I said, I've got some experience, I'll take a stab at it. So did some research, went online, went to the patent office, got the application, filled it out, sent it in. Some period of time it came back from the examiner and said, here's a half a dozen things that are wrong with your application, or I have a half a dozen concerns about the things in your application. I went to ChatGPT and I uploaded the document and I said, as a patent examiner, how would you respond to these claims? 30 seconds later, boom, it spit me out a response letter. I went through and read it so it made sense, cleaned it up, and sent it back. Time goes by, okay, now we're down to 2 things. The patent examiner accepted 4 of the responses from ChatGPT. So I went back to ChatGPT again. I put it in again and said, okay, these are the issues, this is the history. How would you respond to these 2 issues? Same thing, sent it back, came back, now it's only 1 issue. Now I could potentially hire a professional person to help us, because now we only have to overcome 1 hurdle. I didn't have to pay to have the application submitted. I didn't have to pay for 2 rounds of examiner evaluations. It now became, now it's just the ROI on 1 single thing. So I think today it's a lot easier because of AI, that if you really want to dig in, you could do a lot more on your own before you bring a professional in.
You're so right. And when I first started using AI, and this is probably for more than a year, I really was looking at it wrong. I was looking at it as like a souped up version of Google, this thing that's going to give me answers. But as I've come to understand the tool more, it's training me how to think about things, right? Or it's making me think about things I didn't on my own. And I mean, yours is a version of that, right?
Right.
Here's what the expert says and what they don't like about it. What kind of answer you have, and then of course what I'm guessing is you compared that against your set of data and the facts that you knew, and you were able to come back with a response to that.
Right. So I think the important thing about AI today is, and I forget who said this before, but it's something like, if you don't like the answer you got, perhaps you asked the wrong question. Mm-hmm. And that's really important in AI, because how you ask the question can dramatically change what kind of answer you get. So if you could teach people how to query AI in the proper way, I think it becomes a much more useful tool than a super Google or whatever thing you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. I just got into probably 6 months ago, started writing prompts and understanding what that's all about. And of course that's an art all unto itself.
Sure.
But to your point, that's all about telling Google here's how I want you to think about this, or telling AI here's how I want you to think about this, and here's what kind of answer I'm looking for.
Absolutely. I mean, not to belabor the point too much, but my wife has some lower back issues. She went to a radiologist to get the x-rays, to then send it off to the doctor to be analyzed. I took the 3 images and I uploaded them into ChatGPT. And I said, as a radiologist, how would you interpret these pictures? And it printed me out a beautiful, succinct report about her, S4 and S5 and this and that, and it gave me we gave it to her primary care physician, and she liked that report better than the one that came from the actual hospital. Now, I'm not practicing medicine or anything like that, but it just goes to show you that when you can take the entire intellect of the world in the internet, the giant global mass of knowledge, and put that in your hands to do all the things that you want to do, how powerful it can really be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's like medicine. The sky's the limit on this. Right. What we're going to be able to do with AI. My son's an attorney, and he's telling me, of course, they have a lot of privilege issues, client
Attorney-client privileges?
Attorney-client, yeah.
Sure.
Word's hard this morning.
No worries.
Attorney-client privileges, but yeah, the ramifications are just huge there.
Yeah.
So let's pivot to you being a touring rock musician.
Well, I didn't play. I didn't perform. I think groupie was a more appropriate. was more appropriate. One summer, 10 years ago, 2015, I had finished a job in April, and my next job I wasn't planning to start till October 1st. I already knew in April that this company was hiring me, but for whatever reason they had to wait till Q3 for me to start. So I had the entire summer off, and at the time there was a band that we liked that played locally, and we went and saw them perform, and had a nice time. Decided that we wanted to go see them again, and we flew to wherever they were performing. I think it was in California. And I don't want to get into too much into the weeds, but long story short, they recognized us from being at one venue to the other venue, because they were smaller venues. And they're like, why are you here on the other side of the country? And we said, well, we're here to see you. And they were sort of flattered. And they said, well, we're going to be up the street tomorrow night. Come in, it's on us. And from that, we then went back to the tour bus after the show and just spent some time hanging out. And we had some political conversations, some civil discourse. And one thing led to another, and they said, well, listen, we're going to be back over by where you live. You want to come see us? And we're like, sure. At that point, then we were sort of hooked. And then it was like, well, we're going to go here, we're going to go there. And we just sort of made these loops. I think we ended up spending 31 nights on the road with them during that summer of 2015, if I'm not mistaken.
Unforgettable experience.
Right.
And the band's name?
It was Dave Wakeling of the English Beat, which was also General Public.
Mm-hmm.
He still performs. But he had a huge influence on my son, who's in the music business. I think that helped him. But it also sort of peeled back the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz, and see what it was really like to be on the road as a touring music group, and how it might seem, very elegant and polished on this side of the stage, when you go to the other side and find out that they go to a venue and it has a wash machine. So they have to take turns doing their laundry because they can't do it when they're on the road.
It's pretty glamorous.
Right, or whether that venue had a shower. It's just kind of weird when you think about it. It's not all glamour and glitz. It's a hardworking industry, and they're just real people who are making a living like everybody else.
So when I did my show prep and I saw English Beat, I'd never heard of these guys, and of course I saw their songs and oh yeah, I have heard of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were hugely popular in the 80s. They had music videos very early on when MTV needed content, so they got a ton of airtime because they were in heavy rotation because they had videos and they needed them when it first started. They've managed to continue to produce music slowly, but over the years. So they still tour, and it's a shame most of the bands I used to follow in the 80s don't have enough members to continue to travel. And some of them don't sound as good as they used to, unfortunately. But there's still a few out there that surprise me that we really like.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny how you say that, because we saw, my wife and I about 3 years ago, we saw Pat Benatar. And she has not lost a step.
Wow.
Now, she's a couple of years older. I don't know if you're a Pat Benatar fan.
I remember her very well.
Well, so her partner is her husband, right? And he wrote songs, and he's just a virtuoso on the guitar, and a driver, and they co-lead the marquee on this, right? And it's funny because he's a couple years younger than her. At the end of the show, his tongue was hanging out, and boy, she was fresh going at it.
Yeah.
So, but they put on a high energy show. But like to your point, there's a lot of these guys, and I don't know if it's genetic or it's a reflection of the life they lived or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. One other side little story. My wife and I were in Dubai a few weeks ago for vacation, and we see a Rick Astley video while we're in the hotel room trying to find something we could watch in another country where we don't speak the language. And he launched a new CD not too long ago, which my wife also really liked. And we're like, well, we like him. Let's find out where he's touring. So we Googled him. I thought, well, he'll be somewhere in the United States. he'll be somewhere where we have to go for one of the regional meetings or a partner conference,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere there's going to be an intersection where he's going to be close enough that we can take a tiny detour
Yes.
and go see him while we're on the road, because that's the best way to do it. And turns out he's not playing anywhere in the United States. He's only playing in the UK. So I said, let me go on StubHub and see what tickets cost in London at the O2. And I'll be damned if they were reasonably priced. So we're going to be in front row, London O2 this summer to see Rick Astley.
Oh my goodness.
So that became our summer vacation. We're now going to go to London as part of our trip.
So if you're a fan of his, have you seen it? It's on YouTube, but when he performed with the Foo Fighters.
I have not seen that one.
Oh, it's priceless.
I'll look for it, though.
You'll want to check that. You're going to see a side of Rick Astley you've never seen before.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I will look
Yes.
for it. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Gene, we didn't even get to 10% of everything that I had on our topics here. So I'd love to have you back
Sure.
on the show. But take us home here.
Sure.
Like a large part of my audience is I have a few ISO principles that follow it, but they're mostly sales folks. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you've got a little bit different view of what's going on, probably a more universal view than they do. What kind of advice would you give these people if they're looking for an edge or an angle out in the market? What would you advise them to think about?
So I think if I bifurcate your question a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, I think one of the things that they should be looking at from an industry perspective is, and I'm going to use the penny as an example. We just stopped making the penny as a country. Cost 3 cents to make a penny, wasn't cost effective, gone with the penny. Well, if you extrapolate that data a little farther down the line with stablecoin and cryptocurrency and all the things that are happening, we're moving to a cashless society. Having a machine that you can have on your desk in your business to take a credit card and crypto and alternate payment methods and the service and things that happen with that, I think is an important thing for them to be cognizant of. So making sure the equipment you deploy is future-proof, that it's not going to get grandfathered in a couple of years, and look for those kinds of partners who are thinking
Mm-hmm.
down the road and thinking where it's going. Because I see cashless transactions on the rise. I grew up in the generation where cash is king. I still think cash is king for the most part, but there's a lot of people who don't carry any cash anymore. It's only plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So credit card terminals or payment acceptance terminals or whatever you want to call those, because it's really payment acceptance. It's not so much credit card anymore. It's a payment acceptance terminal. Making sure they position that and that they're partnering with the right people to have the right things in place. Because who knows, in 5 years, they may go away with the dollar bill, or the $5 bill, or who knows? They might be moving everybody to a digital platform, in which case there's no paper money, and the Fed doesn't have to spend how many ever gazillions of dollars they spend printing, maintaining, recycling, and all the counterfeiting goes away, and all that stuff. So that to me is one direction.
Mm-hmm.
The other one really, to be more successful, goes back to what Alan said at the show, which I've been doing as much as I can, and it's like stacking. Just make sure that you're when you're out there, you're not a one-trick pony.
Finding multiple ways to add value.
Absolutely. Multiple ways to add value, to add stickiness, to be a subject matter expert, to go to your merchant and say, hey, I believe that this is where the industry is going. You don't take crypto right now. Let's put the crypto platform on your payment acceptance device, so when somebody comes in and asks if they can pay with cryptocurrency, you can say yes. Or you can put a sticker in your window that says, we proudly accept. And that might differentiate you from the guy next door who doesn't. So what things can you offer your merchants to think of you as a partner as opposed to someone selling stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably key in sort of those two different directions.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Well, Gene, I appreciate you being on the show, and more than that, I appreciate our partnership.
Absolutely.
For you folks, Gene has a presence on LinkedIn. Hit him up. If he told me you do 100 nights on the road,
Yeah.
shows, etc.
Yeah.
So he's probably coming to a town near you very soon. Check him out. Hit him out. Once again, folks, Gene Schenberg, top professional in the industry and just all around good guy.
Thank you.
Gene, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
For Gene Schenberg, I'm John Johnson. I will see you back here for Friday on Mailbag. Until then, get your mind right.